Emptying our mind will never work to bring about peace, because the sheer attempt to empty our mind is based on the assumption that there is some state of the mind that the mind has to be in order for me to feel peace. So it's quite literally like saying that I'm only going to be happy if the sun is shining. I'm only going to be happy if there's no clouds in the sky. We're then literally dependent upon the weather. Happiness is completely irrespective of the state of the mind. True happiness, the happiness that I speak of in this channel, in this YouTube video, unconditional happiness, does not depend upon any state of the mind. It doesn't depend on any circumstance. It doesn't depend on any feeling, emotion. So when we want to empty the mind, we think that if I empty my mind, things will be better. If I empty my mind, I'll have more clarity. If I empty my mind, I'll be able to see the truth. And what we find is that this desire to empty the mind is always backed by this desire to remove our suffering. And any attempt to remove our suffering will always be an attempt to suffer, because suffering is resistance. So if we want to suffer, then the first thing we should do is try to remove our suffering. That's what creates suffering. So now that we're aware of that, just know that anytime you're looking to remove your suffering, you're doing the one thing that actually causes suffering, which is to resist. And this form of resistance is like saying that I fundamentally do not want to, I want this to not exist. That's what resistance does. That resistance says, that which exists, that which is the source of existence, pure ultimate acceptance, want something to fundamentally not exist. In doing so, we create a massive resistance, and that resistance causes suffering. So think about it. In any instance that we have this absolute resistance that something exists, we call it hatred for when it's in the form of a person. We call it resentment when it's in the form of an action, someone's action. We call it regret when it's in the form of our own previous action. We call it anxiety when it's in the form of a feeling. We call it, there's different ways, but it's always, I fundamentally do not want this particular thing to exist. But it does exist. And the friction between it exists and I don't want it to exist is what causes suffering, because it's the opposite of our true nature. Our true nature is ultimate acceptance. Therefore, I wouldn't say it's the opposite in as much as the clouds are the opposite of the sun, like it's as much as it's as much as an opposite as the clouds are the opposite of the sun on a cloudy day. You see, they're not really an opposite of the sun, but it does make the sun seemingly less bright. So what we need to do is to realize that we cannot, emptying our mind is useful to see the depths of the ocean. So imagine that we want to recognize the depth of the ocean floor, or even a pond in this case, maybe a better example. If there's a lot of waves and splashing on the surface, it's very hard to see what's underneath. So if we were to soften the layer of the surface, it's easier to see what's inside. This is the wisdom behind the most common meditation traditions. And the wisdom is then we get to see the peace that is inherent in the depth. But see, the problem with this approach is that there's nothing inside to see. The analogy stretches to the fact that, we get to see the ocean floor if the waves are calm on the surface. But in reality, we're not looking to find an object through meditation. We're looking to recognize, it's like looking up at an open sky and expecting something to appear in it. This is what people are searching for. When they're using meditation to find happiness, it's like looking up into an infinite empty sky and waiting for something to appear in it. But the thing we're waiting for was there from the minute we started our first ever meditation, from the minute we've ever existed, which is never, always, has never not been. It's always been there. So it was there before we started the meditation. It was there after we started the meditation. It was there in the middle of it while we were thinking, I can't meditate. What this bullshit? What is this bullshit? It's the open, empty sky. That's all we were meant to see all along. And that's pure consciousness. So we are always in pure consciousness. So whether there is clouds, birds, aeroplanes, blimps, it's always the empty sky. It's that space which all things are contained in. So likewise, when we're emptying our mind, the thing to see is that whether it's empty or full, it makes no difference to our peace. That which is containing all thoughts. If you experience your thoughts right now, you can imagine an ocean. You can think the words. The ocean is wavy. And notice that your thoughts are appearing in something. In the same way that a cloud appears in the sky, notice right now when you're thinking and imagining the waves, or thinking there's a wavy ocean. What a very wavy ocean. Just think those words, and they're appearing in something. The thing they're appearing in is pure consciousness. They arise from pure consciousness and they disappear back into pure consciousness, and they're maintained in pure consciousness. They are made of pure consciousness. Your thoughts are quite literally the waves. They're like waves of consciousness, in the same way that waves are the waves of the ocean. Thoughts are the waves of consciousness. Arise from it, arise back into it. So whenever we're thinking a thought, imagine a thought is like, this is pure consciousness. A thought is like a wave. We're thinking like this. Thinking a thought, what a wavy ocean. You see? It's just consciousness waving like this in our mind, from a flatline field, taking shape and waving, and boop, boop. You see? That's what thoughts are like. They are waves of consciousness. They are modulations, movements of consciousness, arising, never really arising. The water never really arises from the ocean to make a wave. It's always the ocean. Likewise, nothing arises from consciousness. There's only pure consciousness. It doesn't come out of pure consciousness. It's not like a piece of pure consciousness comes out of it, makes a little separate pure consciousness, we call it a thought. It never leaves its pool of consciousness. It's always just that. And the thought part is a localization of it, just like the wave is the localization of the ocean. So emptying your mind, not really an effective approach because it's unnecessary, as long as you understand what I'm sharing with you right now. So we can see this depth of pure consciousness inherent in all experience. In all experience. So just like the thought is contained right now by pure consciousness, so is the sound of my voice, the sights that you see. It's all contained in something. Where is it contained inside? Just like the sun is contained by space, clouds are contained by the sky, the ocean is contained by the water, thought is contained by consciousness, and perceptions are contained by consciousness. Rest in that space of consciousness. Be that space instead. That's true emptiness. If you want to empty anything, be that emptiness, and then experience the fullness of life. I have a free community. The link is in the description. I do meditations every single week. I'd love to see you there. Have an amazing day, guys. Take care.